Oh, man. Trying to get a podcast together on a low, non existent budget is not easy. Hey, how y'all doing tonight? It's Monday night, March 27th, 2023, and this is the first episode of the new Bush Hippie podcast. I'm Ben. You've all probably seen me on the YouTube channel, and this is just another little experiment of mine to kind of help build the community and delve a little deeper into the stuff that doesn't really warrant getting the camera out. This also isn't as dependent on the weather. So, tonight, I want to talk to you about the stuff I've been doing on recent episodes, the whole gardening thing, and how you can take advantage of some stuff that's around you, maybe locally, that you can pick up cheap or possibly even free, or take advantage of resources that you already have available to you, various types of government assistance, and that kind of thing. So, I'm just going to dive right into it without a lot of pomp and circumstance. Um, Last episode, you probably noticed that I built my raised beds out of repurposed and recycled galvanized roofing tin. I was able to get that years ago when, no, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know where that shit came from. It just kind of, my landlady just gave it to me. So, it was 16-foot sheets. You can see in the video at one point that I'm cutting it down to, I was going for right around 12 feet on my length for my beds. It just seemed like a nice number in my head to maximize the space that I have to work with and still have room to get around the beds to manage them and take care of them and whatnot and what have you. Um, I didn't use any fancy special tools or anything like that. I happen, by pure dumb luck, to own two cordless Ryobi circular saws. I have the bigger one that you see me using at the beginning of the video to cut my stakes that support the tin. And later on, when I'm actually cutting the tin itself, I'm using a smaller one. But there's nothing fancy about it. It's the little, I believe it's a 5.5 inch saw that comes in the original green Ryobi uh, 1 Plus starter kit. You know, you get a drill, a circular saw, and a reciprocating saw, and oh my god, the world's crappiest flashlight. Uh, but tools are going to be another episode. So there's nothing special about it, though. Any of it, though. It's all just basic stuff that you can like borrow from somebody, or you might already even have it if you do any of your own woodworking or home repairs. And the cool thing about working with light galvanized roofing metal like that is all you need to cut it is just a pair of safety glasses, obviously, and a circular saw with just a good carbide tip blade. And it just goes right through it like butter. It actually cuts through it better than it does wood. Aside from that, my tools are really basic. You probably started to notice that, and I just over the years have learned a lot of tricks as far as how I use them. Uh, the grow media, the growing medium that I put in them also was free, sourced from right here on the property. It's just compost, like generic, basic, a little bit of everything really. Chicken shit, goat shit, leaves, lawn clippings, wood chips, just bare bones basic as you get, and it's good, dark, rich stuff. So that's another thing. That's the other part. So far, the only money that I've spent on this project at all is just buying gas for Brutus the garden tractor. Okay, so it obviously not everybody's got the stuff laying around that I do, because you haven't all probably been planning projects like this for years and are just now getting around to it. Um, if you got to source the stuff yourself, it's really actually not that difficult. You want to keep your eyes out on Craigslist. I know it's kind of gotten a bad reputation over the last few years, but it's still a great resource for cast off building materials. You can still find like sources of wood pallets on there. You'll see that corrugated roofing metal pop up from time to time. Posts or stuff that can be used to make posts. You really just got to keep an eye on it, and you can't be afraid to be creative. Okay. As we move further along in this gardening series, you're going to see me planting in a lot of really unconventional stuff. Some of it's going to be obvious, like, oh, duh, anybody can do that one. Well, I'll tell you right now, anybody can do all of this. It's not rocket science. Trust me, I know rocket science is a lot more difficult. Uh, the main things that I'm going for this year with my personal garden is what I call your canner crops, stuff that you're going to preserve and put up for the winter. And great, great time for a text message. Well, we'll just pretend we didn't hear that. And I'm also going to play around with some different ways to grow potatoes, because Cadence and I eat a lot of potatoes. They're definitely a staple in this house. If you've caught a good look at me from the side on camera, you can tell by looking at me I loves my carbs. So we're going to be doing that too. And the cool thing about potatoes is, oh, they're almost harder not to grow than they are to grow. I'm serious. I have literally grown potatoes by accident before myself. So I'm going to show a whole bunch of different container usage, different ways to utilize containers, and and ways that you can find space to grow stuff when maybe you don't have a lot of space to work with, and maximize what you do have. Because it's all about getting your yield up. Yeah, you can piss around and garden just for the hell of it, just for a hobby, for the sake of having something fresh now and then, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the purpose of this series is to do it in such a way that you're actually having a significant impact on your monthly food budget. Now, moving forward, eventually it's going to be time for seed acquisition. I've got my seeds covered. Now, if you don't and you're a little bit scared of that initial cost, here's a dirty little secret that not a lot of people know. If you're on SNAP, also known as EBT, or food stamps or food assistance, you can buy vegetable seeds and vegetable starts, that's a baby plant, with your monthly food stamp allotment. It's treated as food because the idea behind it is you're going to take that stuff home. Obviously, you're going to plant it and you're going to grow something to eat with it. That's been around ever since the beginning of the food stamp program as a way of encouraging people to kind of take a little bit more initiative and be a little bit more self-supporting. For some reason, though, over the years, they don't tell you that that's an option anymore, but it absolutely 100% still is. So take advantage of that. Once you've got all your growing situations set up, your planters or your beds or your pots, whatever you're going to do, you got everything laid out, ready to go. You got your media in it. Just Save a little bit of your food stamps to buy your seeds. It's worth it in the long run. And don't even feel bad about it. You're not taking advantage of anything. You're using what the resources that have been made available to you for the same purpose that they're intended for. Now, since I've mentioned it a couple times, growth media is another thing that you might be kind of put off by. Okay, you're probably thinking, this guy, he's doing great, but he kind of needs to check his privilege. He's on this farmstead out in the middle of nowhere. He's got compost. He's got access to farms nearby for manure. Uh, there a lot of times, yeah, you might have to drive outside of the city if you live in a major metropolis. Something like Seattle or New York or the big cities. Yeah, you might have to go out of town for it, but there's always sources of compost nearby. You just got to find them. You just got to get out there and talk to people, ask. You see a landscaper, for example, working at the park. You see him loading up the clippings and leaves and stuff. Ask him where he takes it. You know, a big thing in rural Skagit County where I'm at is tree trimming companies. There's a big major one. I don't know if anybody knows how to properly pronounce the name of it, but if you're from Northwest Washington and I say the big orange trucks that are always in the way, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And when they trim the trees on the side of the roads to clear the power lines on the power company right away and stuff, they just chip everything up right there on the side of the road most of the time, unless the property owner asks them to leave the firewood. And even then, the smaller stuff, it still gets fed into a chipper. And I'm not even playing. If you stop and ask them, most of the time, if you have some place for them to dump it, they will dump their load when they're done wherever you want it, free of charge. You just got to give them the address and make sure that they can get in there. Oh, excuse me. First podcast I've done in a while, and I forgot to get a drink. And if you're in a position where you've got a outdoor space where you can do it, there's really no reason not to set up your own small compost mechanism. Just it can be as simple as a trash can that you dump your coffee grounds, your kitchen scraps, just whatever vegetable based organic matter you can get your hands on into it. But I'm sitting here looking at the clock on my recorder, and I'm coming up on the time mark that I kind of set. So I'll dive into compost another day. In the meantime, just get on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and just use your imagination. Start poking around. See what you can come across that you can possibly turn into some kind of a planner and get some food growing in for yourself. I'll talk to you next time. Have a good night, y'all. Keep moving that needle.